It's Scale School time. We're jumping in deep, hard, and fast. We've got Mr. Kemp from the AR.io network. And as always, the great Axios, the professor, Mr. Sawyer, VP of Developer Success, and the man that makes the things move at scale. Get it? Scale and scale, right? Come on.
That's good. How long have you been thinking that one up?
Genuinely, just off the top of my head right then. I'm not even joking. Completely just vibed it out.
It's that quick British wit, Falcon, man.
Exactly. Hey, we got two Brits versus an American today. It's going to be good.
It's rare.
Yeah, bro. It's been a long time since I got to speak to a fellow Islander. But Kemp, why don't you give us a little bit of a brief intro about yourself, who you are, what you do, what's REO, and yeah.
Love to, man. So yeah, I'm Kemp. Thank you for the kind introduction. So I've been in crypto since like COVID times. Kind of got bored and was like going down rabbit holes on the internet. I was an engineer at the time, trying to like figure out what I could build with all of this free time, and I stumbled across. You guys might know Nada Dabbit. It's like a big DevRel in the space. So you probably know him pretty well. And he was starting to release tutorials in the space. So that's kind of how I got hooked into building in crypto. And then he launched Developer DAO, which was like a big early developer community. Got in there early. I had like time and money. So I ended up sort of helping set that up and scale it. And then for the last 18 months or so, I have been leading ecosystem at AR.io network. So you guys, I imagine, are pretty aware of Arweave. Yeah. So layer one storage blockchain, been around for about 8 years, sort of fully decentralized permanent data chain. AR.io network basically build all of the infrastructure on top of that for uploading, indexing, and making data available. So we've got hosted solutions that people can use, and then we have like a network of about 650 or so gateways that provide like a proper, fully decentralized story of not just storage, but importantly access, which I think is unique if you compare it to a lot of the other providers where you're kind of relying on these centralized services. Pretty cypher-funky ecosystem, doing a lot of stuff around AI at the moment. So yeah, really excited to talk to you guys more today.
Nah, it's gonna be fun. So yeah, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Wow. I'm all messed up from my travel last week. Anybody else, every time they travel, it's just like the rest of the month is just like, what is like, I don't know, just always messing me up. Hey guys, long time no see. I know we were off last week. I apologize. I was on an airplane to San Francisco. I'm going to share some stories today about some stuff that happened last week because it was really, really fun. And I got this cool hat. We can thank Ben Miller. He gave me this cool hat. It says Cloudflare logo on the back. It says agents. Dope. And I was like, this is totally my vibe. All right, let's kick this thing off. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Sawyer. I run Scale's developer success team and one of the lead community devs, do a whole bunch of other stuff, as Falco always likes to mention. Although he didn't use my Game of Thrones intro today, which is kind of sad. I much prefer that one. You know, where you list off like 20 different things that I do. That one's more fun.
I couldn't be bothered.
It's all good. I haven't done this in a while, so today we're gonna kick off with a kickoff intro to Scale. Just like 20 seconds of what is Scale, what are we building toward. If you've been in the Scale community for a while, you've probably seen a lot of changes. So just gonna address some of those really quickly, and then we're gonna get into talking about merchants today, which is such a critical thing. And I have a lot of opinions on this that I think a lot of people in the x402 space currently, I would probably be considered a heavy contrarian to them. And so I want to dive really deep into these because look, I'm a contrarian to everything, let's be honest. That's why I'm like, I don't know, that's why I have a show, I guess. Well, is it really my show? It's like our show. It's your show. It's not my show. Anyways, for those of you that have never heard of Scale, Scale is a network of blockchains. Specifically, we are looking to build the Internet of Agents. We have a belief that the world, which I think a lot of people can agree, has kind of become very, very, very AI. It's taking over so many different things. We have these chat apps doing hundreds of millions to billions of monthly active users. AI is everywhere. But it's not always fair. It doesn't always work. there's almost no visibility into it. And people want to build agents that do stuff for them, but like if you do that, then you got to figure out also like how do you pay for it, or how do they go pay for things? And so we have all these, I hate this word, but I'm gonna say it. We have all these things. We haven't really figured them out yet. And our belief, as well as a lot of other people's beliefs, are that AI needs blockchain. And so our goal is to solve key things like agentic payments, agentic commerce, agentic privacy, huge one. We'll talk more about that as well. And actually allow people to use blockchain to enhance and solve their AI problems. So that is what we're focusing on. Reminder again, Scale is this network of blockchains. We do this through bringing really cost-effective and stable block space to the world, with a whole bunch of other really amazing bells and whistles features on top, as well as key partners like people like AR.io, who we're hoping to have be a merchant on our upcoming chain. So that's enough about Scale. Yes, please.
I heard this cool quote. I can't remember who it is attributed to, but like AI is to blockchain what like the mobile phone was to the internet. It's like they're so interconnected, and like maybe people haven't quite realized it yet, but it's such a big like step change in where it can be applied and where it can be used. I'm super excited about where this all goes.
I love it. I won't say who it was, but I was talking to someone a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about like positioning and how, like, where does blockchain actually fit in? And they said something that like kind of shook me to my core and just totally changed how I look at this thing. And they were like, blockchain doesn't need AI. AI needs blockchain. And I was like, okay, like let's step back here and like walk through this. And literally they were like, you just told me all these things. Like think about what you just said to me. And I was like, oh, you're right. Like there's all these kind of nuanced things around, whether it's context and memory, whether it's communication, whether it's, these smaller payments, whether it's cost effectiveness, whether it's the ability to have literally like crowdsourced compute. Like there's so many things.
I love the idea of crowdsourced compute.
I know it's one of the, I'm going to say things a lot today, apparently. It's one of those things that like in theory makes so much sense. And in practice, I think has not gone where it should outside of file storage. Yeah. File storage is the only thing in my eyes that has actually succeeded in terms of cloud compute or crowd compute. Mm-hmm. I think like the GPUs and stuff, the problem was everyone just launched a token and it just kind of became like a scam. Yeah. But it's such a great concept, and there are a bunch running in production. We just haven't really seen them become defaults yet. But I think that's where, like you mentioned Nader. I think one of the things that is really cool with like the Eigen cloud is I think that's where like T's and verifiable compute actually solve a lot of those problems. Is if we can verify crowdsourced compute, we can actually make it a reality to consume it in production. And so maybe not for like your enterprises of the world, but there's a lot of people building that are not enterprises yet. And so there's a huge market for that, but I digress.
I don't think like anyone's really like fully cracked the decentralized compute bit yet, right? Like there's lots of people that are like having a really good go at it, but like nothing's reached escape velocity. Like on the GPU side, I think Aether are doing like a really good job of like providing access to GPUs for like very specific tasks, but like generalized compute is like it's still there for the taking. I think it's going to be super interesting to see who figures it out.
Because what I want to do, right, is I want to find a way to, if I have a massive like video that I'm producing that render is going to take my PC 8, 9, 10 hours, right? I want to be able to utilize people across the world to just render it for me. Like that for me is like perfect world. And I'm just still so shocked that Adobe doesn't have something like this already, where you just do cloud rendering. Like
they're focused elsewhere, particularly in charging people to cancel their subscriptions. Yes,
making it impossible.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one. But I think just on this topic, because I actually think this is a good segue into the merchants. I think one of the things that is so interesting about kind of today's economy, like broadly economy and society, is I feel like we're seeing more and more people try their own thing, whether it's successful or not. whether it's creative, whether it's tech, whether it's consulting, whatever it is. I just feel like people, whatever shift happens in society, maybe like post-COVID, I just feel like people are more willing to try and fail, which I personally think is a fantastic thing, because if you don't try and fail, you're probably never going to find what you really want to do. And so what's really cool about that is it opens up this new world where people want to try things, they want to do things, they want to sell things, they want to see how they fit in. And we now finally have the means to actually make that a reality without all of the, call it bureaucracy, that has historically come with maybe starting a company. For those of you that are not in a country with access to Stripe, you have it even worse. But for like people that are in the US that have tried to start a company, like trying to use Stripe is like a blessing and a curse. It's really good, it's really easy, but then when they find out that you're not actually like a business and you try to start selling things, they kind of start to get really freaked out, and then it makes it really hard to accept payments, and it just gets, it just gets really tricky. And so I think what's really cool about this whole x402 merchant scene is it doesn't matter whether you're selling compute resources, whether you're selling stuff on Etsy. If you know what Etsy is really cool. My wife loves it. My credit card does not. And it doesn't really matter like what you're selling. It's just this concept that it makes it easier to get paid. And that in itself seems really small, but I actually think it is revolutionary in itself. The ability to get paid faster is critical to actually expanding what can be bought and sold. Then obviously that trickles all the way down to this like long tail future agentic commerce and economy that is slowly starting to build. But even just today, it's like, hey, I want to buy something. Like I have a credit card, I have a debit card, I have a bank account, I've got cash, I've got stable coins, I've got crypto. Well, now I can actually use those last couple things to make a payment. So
that's like,
love where we're going.
I tend to think about money and like capital as it follows laws of physics. So like it will go where it can most efficiently be used, as far like the quicker it can be used, and where it will earn the most return, right? And the systems that we've built are faster, quicker, and provide better yields. So to me, all of this shit, I don't know if I can swear here, but all of this stuff is inevitable.
Wait, swore?
Right?
Nah, detention.
My mom would be very upset with me, but to me, it's like just inevitable. And like right now, we're just trying to like piece these things together and find the step changes that are going to drive the demand curve. And like in 5 years, we'll be kind of like laughing at the idea that we weren't doing this shit.
Fun. I would like to do a massive segue right here, because you said the words investing and Einstein. And fun fact, Einstein was an awful investor to the point where he actually lost his prize money from the Nobel Prize back in like 1930. Very random fact of the day. I give everybody one, but he was an awful investor. Just wanted to.
It doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. I feel like I feel like most people that do well investing are just like the people that they either invest and forget, or they're just like super patient. Anybody that tries to actively make moves, like you got to get lucky one time to cover all the losses. And if you disagree with me, like maybe you're doing something I'm not, but like I'm no good. The only time I've ever done anything well is literally buying stuff, and then I like go back later. I'm like, oh, that actually worked out okay.
Yeah. Every time I've ever tried to trade anything, I've lost money. So now I just don't do it.
Yeah, it is what it is. I actually think though, regarding as far as like the merchant experience goes, I'll let Falcor actually ask the questions here, but I just want to kick things off with a question for Kemp around the actual. This is actually the buyer side of the equation. One of the things that I've been arguing very heavily to people is that the merchant side is actually really easy today. There's so many wallets that you can spin up invisibly for people to let them accept money. Like all of the wallet providers in blockchain space right now, right? You've got Privy, you've got CrossMint, you've got Coinbase developer wallets, you've got ThirdWeb. The list goes on. It's Defense, Fireblocks, etc. Turnkey. Like literally, there's probably greater than 100 of these providers that are all, in my eyes, pretty good at what they do, or really good at what they do, depending. The ability to accept money and then let people withdraw it to a bank account, you can abstract most of that away pretty easily now. Like if you want to build that pipeline, it's not hard. The part that I find is still not where it should be is making it easy for people to pay, especially with x402. In the sense of once you have stable coins in the wallet, if the wallet is abstracted, it's not hard to show a button and say like click or be like, hey, agent, go figure something out. And then, you set some guardrails for it automatically. Like once we get there, it's easy. I'm still finding that getting fiat to crypto invisibly just is not there yet. And that seems to be, for me, one of the actual biggest limitations for the merchant is why would you accept x402 payments if it's not invisible for someone to start making x402 payments? Is that a fair, or do you disagree? Curious.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think this is going to be like, this will be one of those situations where like B2B leads B2C, like B2C, right? Because for someone operating at scale, wanting to accept payments and like unlock this whole new use case, it's a lot easier, I think, for business to business to kind of close that gap. Whereas for like the individual consumer to have to go and learn all of this shit that we've made, like we're trying to make less complicated at the moment, I think is a way higher barrier. And I think at some point in the future, all of the fintechs like the Revoluts of the worlds, the Monzos of the worlds, the TransferWise or whatever, they're just going to build the abstraction, right? It's probably not going to be a crypto native company. It's probably going to be the banks that they already work with, right?
I agree. We actually talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and I said that in my ideal world, spending stablecoins is as easy as like creating like a sub account in a bank. Like I have a checking account, and I can be like, here's my SKALE School agent, and I'm giving this account $10 a week, and it just auto fills, and that agent has like automatic guardrails to pull money from this account, and it just gets converted on the fly. And I was like, everyone in the crypto is going to hate me, because everyone wants to debank. And I'm just like, I don't care about that. For real adoption to occur, like people are not leaving the bank. They trust the bank for a reason. We just need the bank to give us this functionality. And next thing you know, deploying an agent and hooking up like Plaid, for example, superpower. Crypto would be like globally adopted overnight if Plaid made it easy to hook up agent accounts, right? We should talk about that. If anybody from SKALE's listening to me, please reach out to Plaid. Anyways,
Isn't that your job?
I'm literally the tech guy.
Yeah, but everything is your job, so yeah, come on.
All right, let us go into our questions now, because we actually have some good ones. Normally I just ignore the questions a lot because we just have such a good combo, but today, well, they're good questions usually, but like a lot of times I just ignore them because we're having a combo. But these, we have an actual merchant on the show, so we have to ask the merchant questions because they're relevant. So I'm going to be quiet now. Falcor, the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. He's very, just. So obviously, yes, as Sawyer said, AR.io is a merchant. I guess it from a technical perspective, and for a user, what is AR.io, and how does it benefit that x402 landscape?
That's a good question. So AR.io is essentially like a decentralized way to upload, index, and access data from Arweave. So particularly in like the AI agent space, for us, if we actually want to create decentralized agents and permissionless agents, like everything needs to be decentralized and permissionless. So for us, the idea of like an agent having to maintain a cloud infrastructure bill to keep their data available, or having to pay egress fees or whatever to access this data, and not being able to do that in a permissionless way, we think that that's like fundamental, especially in the like decentralized verifiable space. Less important for centralized agents, but really important for the decentralized space. So what we've done, you could already do this with like just wallet private keys in our system, but we've implemented x402 to make it like super easy for agents to basically store data on Arweave. And when they do that, they pay once and then it's there forever. And also pay to access that data in the future. there will always be a free level of access, but they might pay for like elevated levels of access or something like that. But we think that that's like super important to allow agents to just exist in this world and do shit without having to like worry about maintaining bills over here and bills over there. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I guess kind of like it's almost like it allows itself to live in a flywheel, right?
Yeah, you can imagine like if the agent has to keep track of all of these different services that it has to like maintain uptime on and keep paying them, right? That you can't just like fire and forget and disappear off over here and do some other crazy stuff and then come back over here and still have the thing that they did before available. So I think you're right. It allows them to just kind of fire and forget and go nuts on the internet, which is like also scary, but kind of cool. Without having to kind of like worry about those constraints. So it could get pretty crazy, but I think it's necessary.
A question on that. Do you see, just because I think this has been something that I've been really interested in for agents specifically, we've seen this rise over the last, I'd say probably like really only 2 months maybe, of sandboxes. And this was driven by the agentic coding revolution because people kept having their entire computers erased because they, like me, just gave access and said, hey, go to town and build stuff. And then, later it's like, oh wait, computer's deleted. So we've seen this rise of sandboxes. Cloudflare and Vercel leading the charge here. You can now have these like code sandboxes spun up on the fly. They do arbitrary execution, they spin down. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you see as like part of this cloud first network, do you see something like that being potentially doable within something like AR.io, where someone could actually create, like, for example, a Python script that always does the same execution, and then you can actually use like a sandbox mechanism behind the scene, and you're essentially prepaying for example, like 20 years worth of compute. Maybe it's like $100 and it's like 20,000 requests or something, and then anybody can call it as needed. That's cool. Just curious if actual compute has come up as part of your guys, like where you're going.
Yeah, it's a really good like thing to think about. Like Arweave itself, and then by extension RAO, like we're focused on doing one thing really, really well, which is like you give me your data and we'll store it for a really long time and you'll always be able to access it. The compute side of this is not really an area that we've expanded into. We do partner with folks like Fluence and Nilion and others to kind of like bring these solutions together, but I totally vibe with that idea of agents just like buzzing around, spinning up stuff as they need it, spinning it down, and just being able to like permissionlessly do this, and they can fire and forget, and they don't have to like, these things don't have to like maintain state over time. And the more that we can build those kind of systems where they just do something, forget about it, do something, forget about it, I think we create this like flywheel to what you said earlier, Falcor, of like crazy stuff that we can unlock in this agent space. But the idea of like one agent paying for like storage to cover another agent, that's quite cool. That is possible in our stack. So you could maybe have like an orchestrator agent that funded the storage balance for multiple agents. Then they can all like be a swarm together and all upload through the same shared credit base of uploading and accessing. So I think you could do some pretty fun stuff there.
We need to build one of those together right now, because that sounds cool. So we should build one of those. Let's talk.
I can vibe code anything in like a day now. It's great. I love it.
I love this world.
I definitely break stuff, and I often write checks that the engineering team then have to write or cache. But it's fun because the AI just repeats back to me that I'm a genius and all of my ideas are amazing.
It's all good. We talk about that all the time, just about like how agentic coding has totally changed how we think about things. It used to be like we'd have a crazy idea, then we'd be like, this is probably not worth our time. And now it's just like, if you pay for some unlimited coding plan somewhere, you're just like, okay, I have this idea. I'm just gonna go plug it in, and then like I'll come back in a few hours and just see where it's at. And yeah, you can kind of do anything in a day.
The best now is when you've got it like on your phone, right? And you're just like, oh, this is like a stupid idea, and you put it, and you come back, and there's a PR, and you're just like, what the?
I haven't gotten that far yet. I think if I do that, you guys will probably never see me again, just because I think I'll probably be killed for in a what's it called way. My wife will kill me for never getting off my phone.
Do you find yourself like trying to like scrub the fact that an AI's done your PR from PRs that you make, like because it
No,
puts in too many comments or?
no. So I found two things. One, I actually started labeling if an agent does the entire PR, I will label, like I've always, not always, for the last couple of years, I started doing like, I'll label the branches as whoever did it. So like the great Axios / whatever it is. Now it does other like Cursor or Copilot or whatever, although Copilot honestly just doesn't work. Kind of trash. But like Cursor, like Droid, whatever, I'll just have them flag it. But then I'll send it to you. If you use Cursor, I found this awesome Cursor command that I think like the CTO of Cursor posted on Twitter. It's called dslop, and you run it at the end. It's literally like a / command. It says dslop, and it goes through and it removes. It does a git diff of all the changes made. It goes through, removes all the AI comments, removes all of like the dumb immediately invoke functions, like fixes all the AI slop basically. So I started using that, and that's been game changing for the last like 3 weeks.
Please send that to me, because you have this like a concept of, I think it was Bala G that coined this term, which is like AIs are really good at like middle to middle, and then the humans are on either end, right? So I've got to the confidence level now where I give the instructions, I come back and I test the output, and if it works, I just want to merge it. But you kind of have this issue at the moment that we're talking about where if you merge it, there's just going to be a load of slop in there that's like comments and stuff that people might not value.
Yeah, I think funny. Maybe that's actually a good piece to bring up as part of our merchant discussion. I was talking with a pretty big enterprise yesterday. I have no idea if we're under NDA or not, so I won't say who. But we were talking with one of the larger money movers in the world, and we were just talking about what the use cases are today for like the agentic economy, and they, like so many other people, are so like heavy into agentic coding. Everyone, obviously, like, yes, it is the biggest use case outside of raw chat right now is agentic coding. No questions asked. I will not argue that point. But it's really interesting because I feel like, as with anything, like specifically in crypto, by the time it's hot, it's too late. Like you've already kind of missed the wagon a little bit. And so I don't know. I kind of feel like agentic coding is a good proof point for like, yes, we know developers will pay for things. I've said it all the time personally. I'm like, I love some of these tools, but like, I don't want to pay 50 or $100 a month, but I'm willing to pay a couple bucks for a PRV, or like, if it can do a really good code review, like actually good code review, like I open probably max like 1 or 2 PRs a week. Like I'll push the same branch a lot, and I'll just open these massive PRs because like vibe coding. Right. And so I don't need to pay like, I'm willing to pay a couple bucks for it to do a good review on PR, right? And then fix a bunch of stuff. Like that's worth its made. This is funny. Please.
Do you see a world where like, you know, like the tooling around like CodeRabbit and things for like AI PR reviews has got really good. Do you see a world where like maybe like GitHub might facilitate, like, depending on the number of PRs that you get, you'll pay CodeRabbit or whatever at x402?
Yeah, so this is maybe like my contrarian point to a lot of people, is the way that I'm thinking about it. Anybody that already is letting people pay them for some resource today and is already facilitating can essentially solve the fact that their product is not as good by leaning on x402. So a good example of that is actually Claude by Anthropic. It's no question asked. Like I started using Opus last week, like everybody else in the world. That thing is incredible. Like comparatively to the other, like some models you put in some different harnesses and they're really good. Like ZLM with Droid, thing's pretty damn good. You put, Composer 1 in Cursor, thing's really good. But then like if you put like, for example, Codex in Cursor, it's kind of in my opinion. Even Codex in Codex is like, it's just not that good. You put Codex in like Windsurf, it's terrible. It doesn't work. Yeah. So like the harness matters a lot here. But what's really interesting is Falco and I were on a call, and we were playing with GEO exploration, and we were looking at how ChatGPT goes out, does this like really dynamic search, and it pulled back all these dynamic resources and then came up with like a really good summary, really good extraction. Whereas we asked the same question to Claude, and it literally just pulled the top 10 Google search and just summarized those. There was like no actual thinking. And so then we started just talking about like, okay, ChatGPT is really good for this like research and communication, but Claude is like far superior at coding, right? And so a good example here would be like ChatGPT and OpenAI, if they implemented wallets in x402 and Anthropic became a merchant for x402, OpenAI could call Anthropic for coding, and Anthropic could call OpenAI for like normal chat or research. And so it's really interesting because these people are not all going to be good at everything. It's just not possible. There's just not enough money and time in the world. And so it opens up this really unique thing where a GitHub, for example, Copilot, no offense to GitHub, I don't think it works well at all. It's okay at doing PR reviews, like it's okay, but CodeRabbit is far superior, in my opinion. But it's terrible at coding. The code it generates just barely works, doesn't listen, etc. If they could call out to all these other merchants and just automate guardrails, payments, stablecoin onboarding, spend, etc., and then all these other merchants took x402, it not only gives developers better, it probably makes everybody more money. Because again, these are things that people are now willing to spend money on because I guess it was ChatGPT probably who really kicked off the agentic coding. Was it Cursor? Who do we consider?
No,
I think it
was ChatGPT.
I thought it was Copilot. No, you would like the first generation, the first thing that people had integrated into their experience was like
Lovable,
but it didn't work. Lovable actually could be a fair call out here.
I think it might be Lovable.
Regardless, here's what we've done over the last 12 months. In the time that Cursor has gone from a sub $1 billion company to a company worth $30 billion, the world of developer landscape has shifted. Developers are now willing to pay the premium. Whereas my thesis was always developers like me are cheap. We will try to nickel and dime everywhere we can. I have now signed up for more coding subscriptions, or not coding subscriptions, like AI subscriptions. Like it's like a new one every month. I now have Copilot because it does do automated code reviews for me, which is fine. I have, I just signed up for the ZAI GLM max plan because it was like $250 for the year. So I was like, great. I got GenSpark Black Friday deals. I'm a sucker for them. It's basically what Droid uses. If you use Droid by Factory, their like Droid model is built on top of ZAI GLM 4.5 or 4.6, whatever. The company that actually creates the model, they have a max coding plan. So I put that thing in Claude Code, and my gosh, does it go to town? It's actually kind of a beast.
But then Opus.
No, I've only been using Opus through what I can get from other paid subscriptions. Like I think I've used over 8 billion tokens on Cursor this month.
Nice.
And I finally just hit the limit because I started using Opus. And within like 3 hours, I hit the limit. But the reason that I say this, and the reason I'm kind of going on this little rant, and why I think it's so relevant to merchants is I never paid for anything. I was like a really great example of a developer who never paid for anything. I was like, I can do it. I don't need to. I will like nickel and dime free tiers. I will go out of my way to use free stuff. And now I've realized that buying these tools and paying for them, my experience and my ability to do 10 things at one time is real. Like I can now actually, like last night I had 3 different things going at once, right? And one of those things was doing like 5 different agents, but like that's like the norm now. And so I think for merchants, it's become really relevant because if you are not thinking about your future with agentic coding, if you are a compute resource in some way, like you're probably not going to make it. And I think if you're looking and saying, oh, x402 doesn't make sense to me, like I'm not going to make any money, you probably also need a new head of business or head of revenue or CFO because there's so much money to be made because developers are now willing to pay for things that historically these developers, these solo devs were not.
It's like you often get with like devs, like, why would I use this thing? I can do it myself, right? Like, why would I import this library? I can write it myself. Whereas like that mindset, I think you're exactly right, is changing. And I think the other thing that's really interesting is X402 enables like Lego bricks in the same way that like DeFi enables Lego bricks. So like who's the guy at Avail? Naruto the other day like posted this thing out where he was building a way for you to earn yield on your poly market positions by depositing them into Aave. And like that kind of like Lego brick of DeFi is like mind blowing still to me after years. But I can imagine a
Is
world
that not
where
just options in a way? Sorry.
I don't know.
Kind of.
It's like
not financial advice.
What's the benefit to Aave for doing that? What are they?
Deposit value. They make
Yeah.
money.
You're taking either side of the bet and depositing it into Aave, and then you earn a yield on the USDC that's sat in poly market.
It's basically like from my understanding, it's the no risk option. You're essentially just helping prop up the markets without actually taking a position. Is my understanding.
Okay,
right? Because like other people are actually taking the positions. You're just basically saying, do whatever you want with my money while it's here.
Yeah,
is my understanding.
Yeah.
But
otherwise,
continue.
that money just like sits in poly market, right? And no one does anything with it. It's like dead capital. But it's like to me, it's crazy that you can do that. And I think the same will apply to X402. It's just like you can compose services in what you're describing, Sawyer, of like you can just plug all of these things in together. Whereas before it would have been extremely complex to do like a chain of API keys to make all of this stuff happen, right? And it would just be nuts.
Yeah. And that's actually, I think, when we think like, for me, this is actually probably one of the cooler parts of maybe X402 and like this building block thing is right now there's not too many because I think people are trying to figure out where the agents are. And I think this actually comes down to what you believe versus what's here now. And so what I mean by that is we can all say over and over and over, like the agentic economy, machine economy, like this is where we think the world is going. But the reality is we have to build that out if we want that to happen. It's not just like it's going to magically happen. And so the easiest way to think about it for me today is people are using the closest equivalent to agents directly, right? And this is your chat-based prompting, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude Code, Codex, all these different tools, V0, et cetera. They're all functionally using agentic capability behind the scenes, some more than others. There's this whole long topic. We could do a tweet poll on this and see what people think. Whole long topic came up about ChatGPT. People were basically saying, well, is ChatGPT an AI agent or is it a chatbot? Like, is it an LLM? And if you asked me that a couple of years ago, I probably would have said, oh, it's just an LLM, right? Like, there's nothing really happening besides like in out. But now, if you actually go listen to the podcast of the people at OpenAI, I'd recommend it. The OpenAI podcast, really, really great listen. They just bring on the PMs and the engineers and they talk about it. They're doing all these things to build the harness, right? The harness is the thing that actually controls the context, the memories, the inputs, the outputs, the safety regulations, the token control, everything, right? Functionally, to me, that is the agent. Like the harness basically is the agent because that is what's deciding all of these factors. And so today, I actually think that, yes, ChatGPT is probably the closest thing we have to a real life working agent. Yes, we have people trying to run agents in production, but we've seen that hasn't gone so well. Human controlled is arguably the best thing we have that is proving to work. These things can call MCP servers. They can pay for services if we give them the right tools. And so for me, bringing that full circle to the building blocks, there is a massive opportunity right now for anybody that wants to provide building block level compute. Historically, I think where where people get confused is they think, oh, I'm trying to build this startup. I have to be worth $1 trillion. Like if I'm not worth $1 trillion, I failed. And what's really interesting is today, I don't think you need to do that anymore, right? If I just want to take, for example, I just want to like run on modal or deep infra. I want to run some LLMs. I want to do some custom prompts. I want to pull in some custom context. And I want to provide this, like I'm providing inference for, I don't know, bobbleheads, right? I have bobbleheads. People want to ask about bobbleheads and I'm providing like questions. Like,
how do 50?
I've had this since I was like 8 years old. All right. He's missing his hockey stick, but Marian Hossa is one of the greatest hockey players of all time. So you know what? Judge me. I don't know. let me grab some other stuff. Like, I don't know, I've got a tea box next to me for some reason. Whatever it is, right? You've got these people who it's like people have domain specific knowledge. And for the first time in a long time, they can take their domain specific knowledge, they can combine that with custom prompting, which is really important still, despite what people think, custom context, and decent LLMs, and they can build a building block that is capable of doing one thing really well. And that thing may not make you $1 trillion. But like, if it pays for itself and then some, and maybe you get a nice dinner out every couple months or something, and like it just is serverless and it just runs when it needs to run, you don't really worry about it. That allows this world of building blocks, right? So now you've got custom inference, custom storage, you've got context management, memory, you got prompt engine, like you've got so many little things that you combine to build the actual agentic lifecycle. And for the first time in a long time, I think there's an actual opportunity for developers to succeed without having to be like the $1 trillion YC, I'm the best thing ever, like I hit unicorn status successful. You can just like build it and it works, and that is success today. And I think that's really exciting because it changes the landscape for what a merchant can be, right?
How long do you think it'll be before the first like single person, it's kind of a little bit counter to your point, but the first like single person $1 billion company? You have like levels.io, right? Classic indie hacker dude is out there like doing it all by himself. But
I don't know. I actually don't know how relevant that is to me, because I feel like we already have $1 billion companies that are super tiny and successful. Tether, Hyperliquid, etc. You can claim what you want about the risk profiles of these different companies. I personally think those are more like the stories that people use to try to make other people feel bad. Candidly, like, oh, look at this, like everyone has to be like Hyperliquid, everyone has to be a 10-person company to, you know, where every employee is making like worth $1.5 billion a year. And it's like, I don't agree with that. I think like it just depends on what you are, who you are, what you're building, what you're trying to do. I think there's a spectrum to success here. And I think that is the key to me, that's like the key for x402. I guess the one thing that I haven't actually said that I wanted to get at, and the reason I've gone on all these random tangents, and then I'm going to shut up and let you talk because I've been talking too much. The thing that I think is so relevant to x402 is there's already a lot of people selling stuff. And I kind of said this earlier about like, it could be non-compute, but let's focus in on compute. Let's focus in on resources. There is probably 10,000, 100,000, 1 million startups around the world that are like AI tech focused right now. I don't know the exact number. There's a lot of them. They pop up every day. All these companies are capable of now raising like $1 million or 2 million or 5 million or 10 million bucks in VC money. And they just light it on fire, giving away LLM compute. Good for them. The problem is, as we've talked about, you can only pay for so many things. And so all these companies who are using Stripe, they're using Square, they're using Shopify, they're using their bank merchant rails, whatever it is, they're missing out on a huge market, or they are missing out on being the first mover in this huge market, because you can only get so many customers if you're all fighting for the same small group of AI vibe coding developers. And so that to me is like the biggest opportunity here. And that's where I think, you know, someone like an AR.io, historically, if people want to store things, where are they going? They're going to AWS S3, they're going to R2. Now, I don't know if everybody saw, but I'm actually personally really excited for it. Railway just announced 15 cents a month or something for per gigabyte for storage with no egress charges, right? For S3 compatible.
15 cents a month?
15 cents a month per gigabyte, no egress for S3 compatible storage, which if you are a developer and you're a nerd, you know that that is like incredible.
How
because
secure
the one,
is it though?
Incredibly. Railway's a good company.
Right.
S3, you can say whatever you want about AWS. S3 is like the one thing that I think almost every engineer in the world can agree. It's like the perfect thing. It just works. Like if S3 didn't exist or S3 broke consistently, the world wouldn't work. S3 is like the one thing that everybody uses. And so what's really funny about like an AR.io, I actually don't know if you guys have this. I need to look deeper. if you guys have S3 compatible bindings, which I like I said, I actually don't know if you do, but if you do, if you have S3 compatible bindings, that is a great example of almost every developer in the world could use it. And now instead of paying 15 cents a month per gigabyte, I don't know, what are you guys charging per gigabyte?
It's a lot more expensive because you get the permanence, right? But you
that's my point, though.
That's my point. Go on.
That's my point. I'm saying like that's a good thing, because for like a good example would be Supabase. I want to say it's Supabase just launched 4 days ago. Vector search over S3, over object file storage, and so again, we'll go a little bit deeper into the AI side here. If anybody listening is familiar with semantic search and embeddings and vector databases, let's just say they're not cheap. They're really not cheap. They're a separate thing. It's kind of annoying. A lot of people have taken to using something called PG Vector, which is like a Postgres plugin, which lets you do vector file upload and vector search on your Postgres database, but it's historically really slow comparatively to like a Qdrant or Quadrant or whatever, or a Pinecone or a Mithras or whatever. And so this is really big because, again, what do most developers already use? S3 in some way, shape, or form. And so when we start to think about this world of agentic commerce, if I'm creating embeddings, right? Let's say like, let's do like public contextual memory. Okay. Let's say we've got this swarm of agents, and these agents are in charge of taking in sentiment data, right? Someone queries and says, hey, what should I do? They take in a bunch of sentiment data, they make a bunch of decisions, and then they broadcast out, here's what we think. Maybe this is like for Polymarket, right? What's the sentiment of whether the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party is going to get elected next year? How do we feel about each party, right? Today, what happens is all that sentiment comes in, we do some analysis on it, and we probably throw it away because it's not cost effective to store all that information generally if we're not going to use it again. But the benefit of public systems is we can start to reuse things that other people have done. And so a good example here would be, let's say I pay, what does it cost per gigabyte?
About 15 at the moment, yeah.
$15?
Yeah.
So let's say I pay $15 to store a gigabyte of sentiment information, sentiment analysis, and all the outcomes of this. And it's exactly 1 gigabyte, cost me $15. In theory, we can now build something where if other people now want to access this data, we should be allowed to let me paywall it and charge per penny on this data. So I paid the $15, but I can now turn around and resell this data to everybody else. And because it's public and permanent, and we could theoretically do S3 style storage with anything, and we could theoretically do semantic search over vector embeddings, we can now make it where public autonomous agents can actually publicly do like cosine similarity based search and pay for that. And one person actually takes the front end, and everybody else then pays for it as they go. That's kind of where I was going with it. It's just like, that doesn't really exist today, but that's what we can now do because AI is getting really cool tooling, and we can essentially take all of what they've built and just give it to these public agents.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest dreams is a bit strong, but one of the biggest curiosities that the guy who architected our gateway stack, David, had was like this idea of swarms of agents collectively and collaboratively and permissionlessly creating data sets in this open public data lake that is Arweave. And like, where could that go? Like, are there agents like flying around the web doing a lot of research on this thing and then co-creating this open data set on knowledge for whatever it is you care about? And that's really like, I think that conceptually is like super interesting, of like even building like knowledge bases for humanity or knowledge bases for specific domains, which you can then resell access to. Like the last piece for us that there's a couple of pieces that we're trying to close in that loop, which is the tooling to make it easy to search and find these data sets and consume them. And also like that last bit of, if I'm paying to access this data, is there a way that we can connect the payment to access the data back in a permissionless way to the person who uploaded that data, right? And then maybe there's a way that we could split the fee. So whilst the storage is expensive, if you've got agents doing all of these like micro storage of what they've done, and then like a year later, you have this massive valuable data set and you can sell access to that. Like that, I think would be a super interesting world to be in.
I agree. And I actually think that's a great example of something that we can actually help with directly on Scale. Because one of the things that we've been thinking about, Scale show of the day, is the problem with data query and access is when you go and look at the actual cost of this. Like if you're at a computer right now, go look up, if anybody listening, go look up like Pinecone DB query cost, or like quadrant query cost. Like do semantic search on these knowledge bases. They're charging you based on the amount of data in the data set and then like all these other factors. But it's like 0.00001, right? Like it's like super, super small. And so the problem is it doesn't make sense when your query cost is a penny plus and your gas fee is like nearly a penny. And so what we actually have the ability to do on our side is reduce that down significantly because our blockchain fees can be much more stable because we can keep adding block space to keep them stable, which other chains cannot do. But at the same time, we can also make this where because those fees can be reduced so significantly, the actual core payment doesn't need to start at a penny. To me, that's like the greatest sin of x402 so far, is that everyone is a penny or greater, sometimes a hundredth of a penny or greater. That's like, to me, the greatest sin, because blockchains are too expensive to actually do true micropayments. But if we think about it, if you have a data set, let's call it like the price history of Bitcoin, right? If you've got the price history of Bitcoin, I guarantee you that knowledge base is going to get queried like probably 10 or 50,000 times a day by trading agents, because like everyone wants to know like how to correlate against Bitcoin. That's like the thing, right? Or like Apple stock or whatever.
One data set that does live on Arweave is verifiable all of Redstone's pricing data since it existed. So you can go and find like cryptographically signed proofs of all of the prices that Redstone has quoted to the market. The challenge is in like structuring that data in a way where it's really easy to access it. But like it's there, right? So this is a clear example of like this open data lake being created of useful information. And like at some point in the future, like someone is probably going to do something really cool with that data, even if it's just like as simple as an API for agents for historical pricing. Like they're doing it for free on top of a permissionless data set. So super interesting, I think.
Definitely.
I've been it's high on my list of like things I want to build, but I keep getting things coming through that I also want to build more. So it keeps getting pushed down.
That's me and Sawyer's life. We just like, we have all these cool ideas and then we're just like, oh, we actually got to do other stuff.
Yeah, it's the I think that's the best example of today's like vibe coding world is you've got a job. Job is priority number one, but then all these things come up and you're just like, oh, but like, what if I could try that? And it's like, oh, like it doesn't work yet. So like, no, I can't do it. Can't do it. You just get this like long laundry list. But I think what's cool about something like this is it's definitely, I actually think it's something worth exploring between AR and Scale, because I do think that one of the things that I really want that I'm working with a bunch of people right now on is essentially getting these building blocks set up. We need more building blocks for people to build agents. It's very much so a create the supply and the demand. It's the opposite of what we historically do. Connor, VP of Sales and Strategy at Scale, he's got some term for it. There's some guy that came up with this famously. I always forget who it is. But most times you're like, hey, you want the demand, and then you have to build the supply to meet the demand. I actually think this is very much so one of those cases where we see demand in one very specific thing, but it's not for public autonomous agents. And the best way to actually create that demand is to generate the supply of building blocks and make it where it's so easy to build an agent that just can call all this stuff that people are like, oh, well, I'd rather do that than build this like closed agent where I have to run 25 different serverless functions, which I've tried. It's very complicated and very annoying. It's much easier to just use other people's stuff when it is, again, building block.
And that's kind of how DeFi and blockchains played out, right? Like, I think 5 years ago, most of like traditional finance thought that what we were doing was interesting. It was just a million miles away from being ready. So it's like we're in this game where we're building up the supply so the demand comes at the moment. I completely agree with you. And it's like, it's interesting on the like facilitator side, like everyone is like fighting to be the people that organize where that demand is discovered and happens, right? So this is an interesting game playing out between like the Coinbases and third webs of the world. It's gonna be interesting to see what that discoverability layer looks like as well. Like, how do I find this service that I want to use?
Definitely. And I actually, what's funny is I actually think the end result will be that discovery will be separate from facilitators, because I think to be a really good facilitator, you're going to want to focus on making money on bips and transactions. And I don't blame them whatsoever. I think they should. If you're a facilitator and you're giving away, like you're doing it for free right now, you're doing it wrong. You should be getting paid, in my opinion, unless you're Coinbase. I actually still think Coinbase should, because
loss leading, right? It's like selling beer for cheap in the supermarket. But like, do you think people will end up just running their own facilitators? Do you see that world, or do you reckon it will be mostly using the Coinbases and the third webs of the world? I'm curious.
I think it depends on who you are and what you're doing. I think it's very similar to SaaS. So if you're someone really small just starting up, you're probably willing to pay the premium, and you don't care because you don't want to deal with it. Especially because, for those of you that don't know, nonces in the EVM are painful. Most of these facilitators are now running dozens, if not hundreds, of wallets in parallel, and it is a nightmare to manage because the EVM is not built for like single-threaded execution like this, and so very, very painful. But I think that it'll be one of those things similar to like a SaaS. When you start out, you're willing to pay for somebody else, and as you grow, you start getting into custom fee tiers, and then ultimately, if you get big enough, you're going to wind up with either an enterprise partner or you're going to do it in-house. That being said, I also think there's a lot of questions about compliance they're just like a future problem. Like, do we know if a facilitator is going to be considered a merchant of record for a payment? I don't know. I hope not, because I don't want facilitators to have to get MTLs in 50 states in the US. But I can also make the argument that a facilitator is the one processing the information between the two parties, which is literally what you pay the premium to Stripe to do for you. And so, again, I think a lot of it is actually going to come down to me on compliance. I think depending on where compliance lands as this industry grows, that will dictate a lot of it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think for the average consumer, they would rather pay a couple bips and get protection than run their own and then be at risk of what happens if something goes wrong. So I think there's a lot of questions around that. But yeah, I think facilitators are going to become like key financial building blocks. I think the ones that wind up succeeding long-term that are just not related to a network will charge bips. They will have enterprise like grade tiers and partnerships. And ultimately they're going to branch out and probably become wallet providers and on-ramps and stuff like that as well, because they can control end-to-end stack. And I think it makes sense, personally.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw Stripe Tempo still charging like 1.5% on transaction fees, even though they've got underlying costs. It's fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, like that is
the value's there, right? Otherwise, people wouldn't pay for it.
Right. You could say like, oh, well, that's scammy to someone who can just move the money on their own, but that actually proves my point of people don't know how to get a wallet and they don't know how to get stable coins and they don't care enough to do it. If they see, oh, I could do 1.5% instead of 2.7 cents plus 30 cents, they're like, okay, I just saved 10K a year on, $1 million of volume or whatever. Like, okay, I'll take that free money.
Yeah, easy trade for someone to make at that scale, right? It's like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but.
Yeah, that's where like a facilitator and merchants today, they need to show that differentiation of like, sure, you could be way cheaper, right? Like you could be charging 3 bips instead of, 150. But if you're not integrated with a payment stack and someone has to manually get a wallet, manually onboard stable coins, and manually figure out where they're sending to, I guarantee you Stripe is going to win 9 out of 10 times because people don't care about decentralization. They care about making money, and they want making money to be easy. So if you make them more money, but you're still more expensive, you will tend to win, is kind of my point of view on everything. And so I think that's where, again, coming like literally full circle, the first thing we talked about, we need to improve the seller side or the buyer side. It has to be easier for buyers to actually spend stable coins, and not with a Visa debit card. Like, good for Visa and good for the debit card scene, but like it needs to be easier for that to actually filter down into like click pay, click provide $5 of credits to my agent or my ChatGPT. And I think once we start to get that, we will see merchant spending ramp up, and we'll actually see facilitators start to take market share from people like Stripe.
Yeah, but it's like Stripe are always going to be the best people to solve this problem, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. And like we've had this like long-term dream of like, when are Apple going to launch a wallet, right? And when are we just going to have all of that integrated for ourselves? Maybe the changes on Ethereum might be with Fusaka, they integrated something that allowed you to like sign with your face, right? As like the underlying signature type. So like maybe some of this stuff starts to come together, but it has to fit into people's what they're used to. Like I have to be able to do this and pay for something with Apple Pay. Otherwise, I'm just not going to do it.
I agree.
The future is interesting, to say the least. But we are at time. It's been absolute pleasure, Kemp, talking with you, mate.
Cheers, boys.
We will continue to hold down the British Web3 agenda. 2 versus the world. We got this.
With a good crew of us, really. We're just not as outgoing as the Americans, so they don't get on stream so much.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's good, man. It's good.
Good. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of SKALE School. Been pleasure as always. We learned a lot. We did a lot. And hopefully, Kemp, you'll join us again.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Let me know. I'll be here.
Awesome.
Guys,
thank you so much.
We'll catch you later. Goodbye.
Cheers, boys.
Bye, guys.